What's going on, guys? Welcome back to your Lake Fork Guide. It is Wednesday, and that means it is Guides Night. We're going to talk about Lake Fork spring bass fishing 2025. We got those old top secret tips, top secret guide tricks coming to you from a few of the Lake Fork full-time professional guides. Some of the great dudes around this lake, man. We're fortunate to have a bunch of them. We got a couple of them going to come on here and give you all the top tips, baby. The top secret juice is coming tonight. Let's bring it in with a little intro, y'all. Do this. Here we go. The technically challenged are here. Yeah. Sorry about that. We'll go ahead and just bring Dave on in here because I'm just messing this up. David's down here waiting in the studio wings. Dave, how you like the technically challenged going on here?
That was pretty good. Look at my face, how sunburned I am. I had a mask on today. Damn.
Yeah. You look like a lobster, bro.
Man, I didn't realize that. Dead gum. I didn't realize I got that burned. Wow. And I had a mask on. Wow.
Man, I used to kind of joke about it and tell people, look, you get to like April and May and like you hire a fishing guy, he doesn't have a tan line right here. Like you probably hired the wrong guy. But man, I think the older I get, like the less I'm tanning. I don't tan as much. Like I don't change cut, like, cause I have a line, but man, it used to be a lot more defined. I think I've just gotten conditioned to being out in the sun all the time. I don't know, man.
That black stuff on your face doesn't reflect light very good.
Yeah. All that hair there. Yeah, I just, for whatever reason, man, like the tops of my ears used to get burned real bad. They really don't get burned anymore. Like it doesn't affect me as much. You know what else, Dave? The longer I've got it over the years, the old bass thumb?
Yeah.
Listen, brother, I'm going to tell you, these days, if I get bass thumb, we really messed them up because like my thumb's just got like a callus on it. It just doesn't hardly get that anymore. Now I'll tell you when it's been a good day is when you get it down in here. Yeah, you get the teeth marks down in there. That's when you get a bunch of big ones.
That's right.
That's what I like. That still is sensitive down there. That'll still get torn up on me. But man, it's been a good week. It's the wind's been challenging for sure. The wind has thrown us some curveballs. It's like if it wasn't windy, we'd have really been able to open up the whole lake, run all over the place, and really, really catch them. But, beggars can't be choosers, right? We got full moon. We got some decently warm temps. Like, it was this close to being the perfect scenario, but it wasn't bad. Like, it's been pretty good, wouldn't you say?
Well, I mean, as far as the sight fishing going, the bed fishing, I thought it would be a little better than what it was as far as, biggest one we had, I think, was somewhere around 6 pounds. And but we had some 4s, 5s, and 6s coming off the beds, but I just didn't see an enormous amount. I think the big move is yet to come. And more than likely, it'll probably be, somewhere in early April, as far as I'm concerned. But I've been seeing a lot of posts from guys who are catching, decent amount of bed fish.
So I'm going to tell you what I found was the whole lake. I thought the whole lake would kind of go off and spawn. That definitely did not happen.
It did not happen.
So there's like, even in like a individual creek arm, like we all know everybody loves to bed fish in Little Caney. I mean, there's been a million boats in there this week over the past 7 days. It's like halfway up Little Caney and up, you can see spawners.
Yeah. Halfway
down, there ain't a whole lot to look at. There ain't much on the bank in there. Like I made a couple passes. I'm like, whoop, it's not happening here yet. Like,
but you're talking about from Hideaway back.
Yeah, base more or less. And, I saw a few a little south of there, but even the ones I saw south of there were a lot more skittish and not committed, and you know what I mean? Like they just weren't quite there yet. And then if you go far enough south of Hideaway Harbor, there's nothing up there at all. Like not maybe one, like not hardly
Well, you
anything.
can't even get close enough to the bank line unless that old dead hyacinth's pulled off the bank where you can look behind it.
Yeah, and that's kind of the shame of it is a lot. And look, for Little Caney in particular, a lot of the dead hyacinth is in that northern half where they're wanting to spawn. Like the southern half doesn't have as much of it, but they're not spawning down there yet.
You don't think it's ruined it? As far as being a more diversification to spread the boats out.
Yeah, I mean it's. I don't know, dude. I don't think you could spread as many boats as been in Little Caney out enough. Like it's been a lot. Like
don't even go in Six Flags. There'll probably be 14,000 boats in Six Flags.
Bro, it's Six Flags has been bad because Six Flags is one of the ones where you can see them at, and there's a lot of fish up, and it's just the thing about it in there is like if you weren't there on the first day or so, like after that, it got kind of those fish got. I mean, you can still do it, but like it takes you a long time to catch them. They're tough to catch them.
Well, we ran on a trip. Well, I've been at Boat Arc the last 3 days, and man, that was a wind fest. Oh my God!
Yeah, it's been blowing.
My face is barbecued because of standing in front of that trolling motor with that damn 150 mile an hour wind hitting me in the face. Yeah, but right before that, on the weekend, we the trips I had, we scouted some different areas that normally will hold those bedfish. And my client and I, that was Sunday. And we went to several of these locations and scanned those banks, and I did not even see a buck. Which was odd, strange odd.
Yeah, they're definitely not up everywhere. Like there is some areas they're up at, but they're not up everywhere. And look, I've got a couple little areas that I'm not going to mention right now, but like they were loaded this week. Like we had a ton of fish in them. Problem was, the areas that had a ton of fish that you could actually see good, like the areas that didn't have a lot of hyacinth and had a bunch of fish,
right,
got pounded with pressure.
Yeah.
Like. It was hard to find an area that wasn't getting hammered that had fish up in it.
Yeah.
And I will say this. I did have one little sneaky corner that had them in it. Didn't have a lot, had a few. It had some big ones. Like you talk about, you didn't see very many real big ones. Like you didn't see the real big ones. We had like a 8 or 9 pounder get dumped halfway to the boat that should have been caught. Oh. And then right around the corner from it, we had one that was 10 plus. That was just never would get catchable for us, but we got to see her a bunch. She was big. She was up there doing, and she was up there getting some shallow day for tails coming out of the water at times. And she had a big old tail, and she was real long.
I have a feeling I know where y'all were. I haven't been in there yet to look in that in particular.
Yeah, you don't know where I was on that one.
Oh, that one, no.
Yeah, that one.
I know where you usually are at this time of the year, but I hadn't even gone there, not at all. And so it's been, I'm gonna have to migrate in that way.
The thing is, the wind's been the way the wind is. So what wind really does is wind really limits what you can do. It limits how you can fish. It limits where you can fish. It takes a lot of things away from you. And with the sight fishing deal, what wind has done is, number one, some of the areas are just too windy to see them real good in. Like you can't see them. Number two, man, when you're a guide and you have customers in the boat. Like I made a mistake on Saturday of trying to run up and down the whole lake. And even on Saturday, which was not our windiest day, it was just for those customers, it was not like it kind of messed the trip up a little bit where it wasn't enjoyable as much because we were getting beat up going up and down the lake.
Right.
And they didn't enjoy it as much. And so you got to be careful as a guide that you don't take your customers into something they're uncomfortable with. Now, look, you got a hardcore tournament fishing dude. You can run up and down that, and the Skeeter boats will do it. But you got to have the right people in your boat, or otherwise it kind of ruins the day for them. And so what the wind has done for me is it has eliminated a lot of places that I want to go look. Yeah. And one of the biggest keys to sight fishing is to cover a bunch of shallow water looking until you find where they're loaded up at, because they will get loaded up in certain areas. Like I've got one area where I've got 4-pound males and bigger females, and the bigger females are coming and going. They're not there all the time, but the 4-pound males are there every day. And they're every 10 foot, dude. Like they're stacked in there. But to get to it sometimes, the way the wind's been blowing, it's a nightmare. It's an absolute nightmare.
Well, the places I've found like that, I mean, it's been community whole city. I mean, there's boats galore in it. I mean, it's just nothing you can do.
I've literally got 2 pockets. I've got the stuff that everybody's fishing, which we're all going in there and just trying to be better sight fishermen than the next guy. And we're doing that. We're catching a few fish. But I've got 2 pockets in particular. One that's loaded with 4-pound type, like 3 to 4 pound males, and gets a good female in there when they show up. That one's getting fished a little bit, but not as bad as everything else. And then I got that one other pocket where I've seen some big ones in that nobody's really fishing that. And it's a small, like it's a real out of the way nook in the corner type deal that nobody really goes into because it doesn't look like much and it's just not a known thing. But I mean, that's kind of the two things where I can go in there and really catch them in those areas. And everything else is like fighting other boats off, seeing what you can, So it's good. Like it's good. There's a lot of big fish getting caught on Lake Fork right now. It's not because of the wind and a little bit of colder. I'm going to change gears on you here a little bit. We talked so much leading up to this about the moon phase and how the fish move in on the full moon and really get to spawn in the best 3 to 7 days after the moon and all that. Mm-hmm. That is variable by the weather. I can tell you that for sure after this week because like 3 days, like 1 day, 2 day, 3 days after we had wind, but we had that good warm weather over the weekend.
Right.
They were spawning in pairs. Like the moon was on Friday, there was pairs on Saturday, dude. Like the pairs happened quick on this cycle. And then as the week went on, when we're supposed to be kind of in that prime window for them to pair up, there wasn't as many pairs. It got colder. The mornings got a lot colder. The water temp dropped back down some, and we didn't see as many of the pairs in the females. So as good as I felt like my bearing and my grasp on the moon cycle was and how the fish act on it and when the timing of it, I learned something this week, and that is that it is affected and it's variable by the weather.
Yeah. Something strange happened on Saturday. My clients, they'd never really bed fished. And I
know who you had Saturday because I had them Friday.
Oh yeah. And I saw these two on a bed and they were both big. And I thought, well, why is this? Both these fish are this looks to be the same size, but they weren't going anywhere. They were staying right there. And the guy caught both of them. And this is what was really strange. One of them was right at 5 pounds, and the other one was a big bellied female that weighed 570. So why would a 5 pound male be with a 5? That was, I thought, was strange.
So I've seen that, and the only place I've ever seen that's on Fork, where we got like big males, and every once in a while they'll get with a female that's kind of the same size as them. And then Dave, I've also seen this. I've seen it to where there's two females of the same size on the same bed.
Yeah.
And sometimes you don't see the male because the male's either been stuck already, so he's staying away from the bed when your boat's there or whatever. But I've seen just two females on beds in years past on multiple lakes. I've seen that, but I have seen on Fork where there is like you can kind of tell the difference in how they're shaped and everything. Right. Like there's a big male that's about the same size as a female. But Fork's the only place I've ever seen that, man. I guess we just might be the only place that has that number of big male bass where that actually happens.
Yeah, maybe so. Yeah, I saw two double digits that were about 4 foot apart with big beds. I mean, and I was like, that was bizarre. And I'd be like, damn. And I could not catch either one of them.
There's
with a damn 1 ounce weight, beat them inside of the head.
Banging
on
them.
To go to the emergency room by the time I got done with them.
Banging on them. Yeah, you beat them up. Yeah, I mean, look, there's some nuance, and every bedfish is a little different. There's some uniqueness to every bedfish. And so you will see weird things. Like I've seen one female working multiple males, like where she goes over on this male's bed, and I flip her over there, and she leaves, and she goes over to the next male's bed that's 10 feet down the bank or whatever, and you can see them both at the same time. I've seen them do that. The biggest one I ever saw on the bed was on Salida Bend. This was on one of our – when I used to take a guy's buddies trip down there when I first started guiding. I haven't been able to go on that last few years because my kid's been playing baseball and stuff. But I saw a really big one on the bed, and I caught both the males, and the males were like 4.5 and 5, and it was the biggest fish I've ever seen on the bed. It was in the teen class somewhere, but never could get her caught. But she was on it was a weird deal because you got all that grass in Toledo at that time, down 6 miles where I was in 6 Mile.
Yeah.
And up on the flat. And the water was real clean, and this fish was in like 4 or 5 foot of water. I could barely see the bottom, but you could see bottom about 5 foot of water at that time on Toledo in that area. And the area was almost the size of my boat. And there was a male on one end and a male on the other, and she would bounce back and forth between the two, depending on where she wanted to be. She'd stay down there for 15 minutes and then be over here for 10 or 20 minutes and just kind of move back and forth as she pleased. But there's definitely some uniqueness and nuance to every single bedfish. It's probably my favorite thing. It's probably why it's my favorite way to catch them, because number one, it's limited time availability. It's 2 to 3 months out of the year. And then on top of that, every single bed fish that you fish for has some little subtle difference that'll make them bite. And the faster you can figure out, the faster you can make a bite, the better bed fisherman you are, because the more you're going to catch, the more you get to look for big ones and all that good stuff. So, being efficient and making them bite fast is kind of the art of it. And people that say it's easy, you ain't done it enough. Like you ain't competed. You haven't done it in a competitive way where you're trying to catch the biggest bag you can, for sure.
A lot of times when I get a rotation going, and most of the time when I throw a white trash skinny dipper in there with a red tail, that's where the game ends right there. They'll usually hit that.
Really? You on the skinny dipper on the bed?
Yep.
How about that?
Yep.
How about that?
They will hit it. Yep. So
man, they'll bite a lot of different things on the bed. I'm of the belief system where it's a lot more about reading their behavior cues.
Yeah, exactly.
And how to trigger them. That matters a lot more than what you throw at them, in my opinion.
Yeah, because then a lot of times when I can get that thing close, and once he gets a spin on it and he looks at it, then a lot of times I'll just have him take a wacky Cinco and throw in there, and a lot of times they'll hit that wacky Cinco because it falls differently. And if they can make a good pitch, problem is getting somebody that's skilled enough flipping to be able to flip that thing into the right spot. That is it.
When you go to other places that don't get the pressure Fork does, it's a different deal. If you can just pitch a bait close to the bed, you can get a lot of fish to bite on some lakes. On Fork, most of these fish, especially if you can see them good, so they've been flipped at a bunch.
Yeah.
You got to be able to hit a solo cup, like consistently. You got to be able to get that bait out and put it right back in there real quick in a size of a solo cup. And what I always try to teach people is to pitch well past it.
Absolutely.
And as soon as the bait hits the water, thumb it and lift your rod and swim the bait along the surface and swim it into the spot you want it.
Same here. But it's for most, it's hard to even do that.
It is.
Because some of these fish this week, they were in some junk. I mean, in some brushy looking junk. And there's one good one. I had to go in there and I said, okay, here's what we're going to do. I pulled up there and I started breaking those branches and cleared a pathway in there. I said, we'll come back in a couple hours.
Yeah.
They can at least get the bait in there.
Yeah. Sometimes you got to do some landscaping. You just sit in the landscaping when you're done.
Exactly.
Yeah. I've been there a couple times. Yeah. I hate doing that because you don't want to disrupt them. Like you'd rather be able to flip for them without disturbing all that. But sometimes you got to do that, man. It's the only way you can get to them right. So, man, it's fun, dude. I love it so much. Are you catching them any way other than bed fishing good that you can talk about?
Oh, yeah. We've been using a lot of, well, do I say it here? Chicken shit rigs that have
that's really Carolina rig.
Miniature Carolina rig. And on the warm days that are over 60 degrees, as long as it gets up to 58 and the temperature is rising throughout the day, especially getting to 5 o'clock, because I've been staying till 7 o'clock most days, 6:30, and I can get them to hit a swim bait, in some of those areas. And so, and that's been, and we caught some pretty good ones doing that too. But when that temp falls and it starts going negative, then they won't bite it. They won't touch it.
Have you gotten completely off that rattle trap bite? I know you were on a rattle trap. I know I was on it.
I was. And we threw it last Saturday. We threw it on Saturday, but Saturday or Sunday. I don't think we got a single fish on it on either of those days, Saturday or Sunday. Yeah. On the red rattle trap, because the weekend before on that cold Sunday when it was really cold, I think the high was 52, the wind was blowing, it was freaking cold, and I had a 4, a 5, a 6.5, and an 8.5 that day on a red rattle trap that day.
Yeah, the rattle trap has been good, but it's about time for that to start kind of probably. I mean, you probably still catch some on it, but it's probably going to fade. It's probably fading now.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you know me. Look, I get so consumed with the bed fishing deal that. And I feel like I can see them a little better than most early in the day. So I do start earlier than most on bed fishing. So I'm not doing a lot of fishing outside of bed fishing. One thing I will say is frogs. It's time to tie your frogs.
It's getting close. Doesn't it need to be closer to the mid 60s?
It depends on the area you're in.
Right.
If you're in an area where they're spawning good, then absolutely you can catch them on a frog. 100%. Like if they're in a foot of water or less, and a lot of the early spawners are in a less than a foot of water, especially if you got a little stain in that water in that area. Those fish will spawn a little shallower. And you know, there's a lot of junk in the water like we're talking about. A lot of, you know, those pencil reeds are up there. They like to spawn against those. The little flooded bushes that we got, the grasses, some of the hyacinth, you know, they're spawning behind some of that in gaps. And you can get a frog to those fish and put it right on top of their head and dance it around and get bites. So, no, you can catch them on a frog right now a little bit, but you got to be in the right area. But right. You're right. When it gets to like the mid-60s, you'll be able to catch them up and down the lake on that frog.
Well, that's what I say. But, I mean, some of the places that that I like to fish that, I need the water to be like 57 like it is now, 58, and then have 3 good warming days where that water will go to 62 when it's headed up, and then I'll go check those frog spots out and just see. Yeah. I mean, it's got to be on an incline of temperature that I think they'll hit it.
Yeah. See, for me, I'm just looking for the spawning activity. Like if I'm seeing them spawning heavy in an area,
yeah,
then I'll throw that Topwater out on the next morning in that area.
Huh.
As long as they're on the bank and it's right over their head, they'll react to it sometimes.
Yeah.
You know, regardless of temperature. But that's kind of a, you know, it's not a deal where you just, you know, you ain't been out there all week. You show up on Saturday morning, pick up a frog, go down the bank. That ain't going to work.
No, it ain't going to work.
You got to know that those fish are in there.
Yeah, I know that for a fact.
Yeah, you got to know the fish are in there.
Backs of pockets. I know some of those pockets like you're talking about. One in particular that we got into a couple of years ago, and man, it was loaded with frogfish back there right out of the gate in the morning. And I mean, that was a strange thing, you know, as far as that goes, that early. But they were there.
It's a good way to do it because you can kind of like, you can get a lot of movement without a lot of forward movement with a frog. So you can kind of get it over, you know, and if you're just blind fishing a frog, you don't know where they've been bedding. You just pretend that you know where they are. You look where you think there would be a bed.
Should be there. Right.
Yeah. You're like, oh, there could be a bed. Like that looks like a good spot for one to spawn. And you try to work that frog in that bedded area and make it move a lot without moving forward very much. You know, make it side to side. You know, stop it, hit a couple twitches, make it stop, hit a couple more, make it stop, and just kind of do that dance over that bed for a few seconds. And, man, a lot of times you'll get real big ones that will react really well to that. But you don't have to fish the frog a whole long way back to your boat. So, like, you kind of fish it in that spot where you think they might be spawning, you pick it up, throw the next one. And that's what you do. And it's getting close to where you can do that in a lot more areas. You can do it in some right now. But that is a very effective way to catch numbers. When it's going good, it really is.
Right. But that's why also, too, I'm going to put an 8-to-1 gear ratio reel on my frog rod.
Good idea.
And just for that very reason. So you can recover that thing, get that line in immediate. I mean, just.
Well, and look, dog, I'll tell you another reason for that, Dave. When you're frog fishing for spawning fish up on the bank like that, they only got one direction they can go when you hook them, and that's towards you.
Yeah, exactly.
So you got to be able to catch up to them. That's a problem too, right? Like that's a big problem at times, being able to catch up to them. So you want to make sure you got that high-speed gear ratio reel in that situation as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I never forget last 2 years ago, I fished with this guy, Phil Hennigan, down on Rayburn. His son was fishing the same day in the same area we were in, and it was new growth lily pads, all right? And it was a little later than April. It had to be towards the end of April, beginning of May. And he was using an 8-foot rod and even a faster gear ratio. And I watched him, and he's slinging that thing, and he's working that frog at warp 7. I mean, it was the most unbelievable thing. And he ended up, before long, he had 16 pounds. Every fish that Phil and I hooked, they would bury up in that stuff, and all those big ones we lost because we couldn't get them in fast enough. And that big high-speed reel with that 8-foot rod, he totally controlled those fish. I told Phil, I said, you know, I might be a little bit too old for that. Throw a big lumbering rod and a fast reel. I mean, God.
Yeah, well, sometimes you got to do it. We got a question asking about the next couple of days, you know, what it's going to be like. So weather right now, you know, today was around upper 60s, low tonight's 41, tomorrow's high 64, overnight low going into Friday's 38, Friday's 75. So it's going to kind of stay what it's been. And I would say that this wave of fish that is in right now in these northern areas, you know, the earlier spawning areas, some of those are going to start dwindling in numbers, and you're going to be more on the staging bite. So the shallow point deal should become more and more effective as we get close to this weekend. And the good thing is we got a good warm trend this weekend. So Friday is going to be 75, and then overnight lows 51, high Saturday 82, overnight low Saturday night going into Sunday 64, high Sunday of 80. So as far as tips go, now I'm not looking at wind, but as far as tips go, you should have a really good mix of a staging bite on like shallow points out in front of the spawning areas, the shallow hard spot stuff that we all talked about at length, that Mike talks about a lot, that should start to get better and better and better the closer to the weekend we get. It should be really good this weekend. Mm-hmm. But on top of that, you'll have some that are non-moon related. There'll be new spawners coming in just because the weather's warming up again. Right. So you'll have a few that'll trickle in to refresh some of your spawning areas because the weather is warming up. And then by the end of next week, we have the new moon coming, and we'll have quite a few new spawners at the end of next week. So good mix this weekend of spawning bass and staging bass is what I would suspect for this weekend. By the way, there's a Bassmaster Classic going on right down the street, and that should set up pretty good for those guys to have a mix of all the spawning and the staging and feeding type deal. Make it really a wide open tournament over there too. So it'll be a good weekend.
Well, some of these pockets that I've been catching numbers in, these places, this north wind, even though we had 2 good days of that big south wind rolling up, it don't take but 1 day of this north wind or northwest wind, and it blows that warmer water out of there. Yep. Drops that temperature 3 or 4 degrees, yep. Especially it's going to go down to 41, 42 tonight. So I expect that spot, neither one of those spots, I'm a little bit worried about it for tomorrow's trip, that, I'm dependent on, and here's the interesting thing. Some bigger females have finally started moving in. There was a lot of males in those areas, and now the females are starting to slide in there. And that's why we were catching them on the little Carolina rig and started picking them on that. And I think they're going to pair up in there in those areas is what they're going to do, coming up. But tomorrow will be interesting in the fact that I'm wondering how low that water temp is going to be in there. It could end up crippling me. So I'm going to have to pull a big adjustment on the water, make some changes tomorrow in order to, try to bail a day out.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I noticed that a lot this week with the wind. What sucks is early in the spawning cycle where the water's kind of just getting warm enough for them to spawn like it is, it really has an effect on them. Where like you want to be in the warmer water because they'll spawn better and they'll bite better. The fish that are spawning will bite better in the warmer water. But when you go to the warmer water where the surface water is getting blown in by the wind, you can't see them because the wind's blowing in there. When the wind's blowing as hard as it has, you can't see those fish.
That's sight fishing regulated, but I've been not even depending on that. When that wind blows in those pockets, it creates that current, and that's when we've really, really, really,
just regular fishing.
Just regular fishing. And and these are grass related areas too. And those fish come up out of that grass. And it's lots of bites, you need that south wind in order to trigger that.
Yeah.
Is what we've had. Yeah. So the days that have been a north wind have been slower and have to make adjustments and fish in other areas. Now, what I have seen is I go into some of those areas, and it depends on how some of these pockets, the architecture of them and the way they're shaped, the temp didn't drop quite as much in there, and we're able to pick up still some bites. So, but big numbers are not nearly as easy after you get a day like today.
Yeah, no doubt. Got a good question here. Are you line watching or lifting or just setting on instinct when using harder to see natural colors on beds? Can see the white disappear, but the fish know it's weird, but they'll hit green pumpkin immediately. Yeah, so I'm a natural color guy on bed. So I throw all natural colors on bed fish, have my customers do it. And here's one of the biggest reasons I do it. Yeah, I feel like you get more fish to bite on natural colors than you do white. But on top of that, I actually want most of my customers, I want them to feel the fish, not see it. A lot of times the fish will bite at a bait and not get it. And customers will think that fish has the bait and swing. And when you rip one away from one that hard, especially if you can shock them and scare them. And what that can do is set your time clock back on how long it takes to catch that fish. You work that fish up, you work him up, get him aggravated, and then he's almost going to bite, and he doesn't quite bite, and you think he did, and you swing. Well, now you just add another 15 minutes to catching that fish. You got to work him up again because you spooked him a little bit when you swung and missed. So that's like the main reason I use natural colors almost exclusively. As far as what am I doing to be able to know when the fish bites, It's like I said, I want them to feel the fish. You're shaking it, and there's a little slack in your line, but when they bite, you can usually feel like 99% of the time you'll feel the bite. And I don't just want them to feel a bite. I want them to feel a thump, and I want them to check a little bit and either feel that fish move the bait or hold the bait. Like when they thump, you can feel that sponginess if they're sitting still. Most of the time on a bed, they're going to bite it and move it off the bed. So when I say I want them to feel it a little bit, here's the thing. It's a fine line between waiting too long and missing the fish. So as soon as they feel movement of the bait, I want them to set from wherever they are. I want them to set to the right shoulder right now. Don't drop your rod and reel the slack up and take that extra second, because these fish, especially on fork that are pressured, they will bite and spit, and they'll do it faster than you think they will. They'll bite it, move it, spit it. And it's hard to get those fish hooked sometimes when they're doing that. So it's a kind of a skilled thing you got to learn throughout the day of shake, 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 feel a thump. As soon as it moves, wham, right now, quick as you can. But wait till you feel them move. But when you feel them move, hit them quick and hard.
Now, the client said the other day that you could tell that fish whenever he would rush in there, and then I would say he's got it, and then I would watch his line, and he wouldn't notice the line actually moving.
Yeah,
and I'd tell him set it, and he'd snap back, and all of a sudden that fish has got it, and there he goes. Yeah. But they couldn't tell that the fish was on there. Yeah. They really couldn't feel it, but you could tell that the reaction of that bass said that he probably picked it up, but when the line moves, he picked it up.
Yeah, it's amazing to me too how many times like you'll know a fish has it because you can see the line moving or whatever, and you're like, "Hey, swing, get it, set it." Hey, and they'll just sit there like, "Huh? What'd you say? What?"
That's exactly right.
Like they'll hesitate on you when you do that. A lot of times, it's pretty funny. Yeah. But we got another rascal to add to the bunch here.
Oh, did he wake up?
No.
Oh no.
What's up, fellas?
Chatterbait dog.
That's it. Oh, technical difficulties on music over there.
Are you in Zach Watt's storage unit?
Yes, he is. Yeah, there he is. I saw him over there a while ago when I put my boat up.
Yeah.
My coal pop out.
Yeah, it is. I got
what y'all want to know? What y'all want to know tonight, baby?
Z-Dub. To you, big dog.
Z-Dub.
Hey, Billy, you ain't gonna believe it. Yeah, you ain't gonna believe it. You ain't gonna believe it, Han. I have turned into a scoper.
I know. I heard. Hey, you know what's funny is I've gotten more on that deal, a lot more on that deal this year. I tried to call you the other day, but you didn't answer, didn't return my call, which is pretty normal these days. But that aside, I was calling you to tell you, hey, you need to go on and get on this live scope deal. Like,
I got it. And listen, here's where I see the value in it. I really couldn't give two craps about watching my bait and doing all this. But when you pull up to a piece of structure, a brush pile, a rock pile, whatever, with the 360, sometimes it can be hard to see the fish in that structure. Okay, so you just kind of got to fish it, and you might be wasting time as to where with a live scope you can pull up, you can scan it. Yeah, there's fish here, fish it. If there's not fish here, go on to the next one. That's where I'm seeing most of the value initially, but as time goes on and I like this thing more and more, I'm sure I'm going to be dangling my bait in front of fish, in front of some fish.
I was going to say, with enough time with it, you'll be actually out there scoping. Like that's it's taking me a long time to come around to it. But
I don't know. He may be.
I'm actual doing some scoping now.
Yeah, that's the plan anyway. I got a lot to learn. Like it ain't even set up. I'm so excited to get out on the water tomorrow just to look at it and see what it looks like.
I'm gonna tell you the biggest thing that's gonna frustrate you in the beginning is gonna be your boat control. Like being able to keep your boat in line and be able to keep the fish on the screen and follow the fish because they move a lot. Especially trying to learn it after it's warmed up a little bit. They move so much. You're gonna have a lot of challenges learning boat control and keeping the fish on the screen when you first start doing it. But stick with it, dude. Like you'll like it. Like once you get it a little bit, and once you execute a few times, it's like a lot like sight fishing in a lot of ways, and you'll enjoy it.
Right.
You know what it is? Hey, it's like sight fishing, but there's a lot more uncatchable ones than there is when you're bed fishing. That's basically what it is.
I got you.
If that makes sense. Like you have to just let a lot more go when you're looking at them on scope. Because you got to remember that fish isn't anchored to a spot. So if he won't react to your bait right away, you just got to leave him alone.
Right. Okay. Duly noted. Good tip.
Yeah.
Just the tip. Just the tip.
Just the tip, baby. That's what we do around here. Here's a good question. Will Fork be slow because of Ray Roberts Classic this weekend? No.
There's 4 million boats on Fork.
Bro, I want to say this. Like, I hear the argument for how crowded Ivy's gotten in West Texas has definitely gotten some traffic out there and all that. And this last week or two has really reminded me no place on earth gets the pressure Fork does acre per acre. It's just not possible.
No, every boat ramp has been so full, you can't even find nowhere to park.
Bro, you could
even
not
in all this
fit,
wind, dude.
I promise you could not fit another boat on the bank looking for a bedfish anywhere in Little Caney on Saturday. With that high school tournament being launched out of the other side of Little Caney, on the outside of it, there was nowhere. Like, I tried to go to Little Caney in the middle of the day, and every single pocket had multiple boats where you couldn't even get in there and go look down a stretch and look for fish. You couldn't look for betters. I had to leave Little Caney and go somewhere else, and then I came back after 3:30 when the high school tournament was over. Like,
exactly
well, if I'm not mistaken, there's a big kayak tournament in the next couple of days as well. Is it on the weekend as well?
No, it ends tomorrow.
They canceled today. Yeah, I
ran
into a guy today, and he was in it, and he was at Boat Arc, and I said, wind's blowing 50, and here's a guy launching with a kayak, and I went, what? And then we got to talking, and he was in that. They canceled the Fork version today, and then they're going to fish 11 hours or 10 hours tomorrow. Is what he said.
I can't believe they canceled it because, I mean, hell, all they do is launch in the damn cove anyways.
Yeah.
So,
he said.
Well, I think what they worry about is you get it, but it gets so windy, it knocks so many areas of the lake out that it's going to overcrowd the areas where those guys can actually fish in a kayak at. And they're going to just get too many on top of each other, and they can't really fish. That's probably why they're doing that. But
well, my biggest tip in that scenario is find out where all the bridges cross the lake and avoid the pockets right there along them bridges.
That's right. Yeah, we can get away from them. Kayak fishing tournament's no big deal. We can run away from the kayaks for sure.
Yeah. One of the big hitters, one of the big kayak hitters, his name is Russ Snyder. And I was lucky enough to be able to run into him 3 years ago, whatever the year he won. And he wanted to get in this pocket that I was headed into over there in Ray Branch before me. And so I said, well, yeah, I'll spectate for you. And he pulled in there. And this guy, he's really famous in the kayak game. And this pocket had some kind of vegetation off the bank. It was only about maybe 15, 18 inches of water under it. He's standing up in that kayak and he's punching that stuff. And I'm thinking to myself, well, I'll eat this fish raw if he catches one. And he's going along. Next thing you know, snap, 4-pounder. He pulls out of it. I was like, he's doing a jig through that stuff. And so I talked to this guy today, and he's good friends with him. And he said that that currently he's on some fish right now that he's using a white spinnerbait with gold blades, and he's catching some good slot fish doing that.
I bet. I've been thinking about that so much. I need to pick up a spinnerbait. Like, we used to catch him in March on a spinnerbait all the time on Fork, and with all this wind we've had, it's been perfect spinnerbait conditions. And
I've been throwing one, been catching some.
It should be.
So, Billy, you remember that spinnerbait you showed me a couple years ago, that War Eagle spinnerbait with the big gold willow leaf and the little orange Colorado blade? Yeah. That's been pretty good for me the last week or two.
Yeah. Yeah, if you go look on the deck of my boat, there's one tied on. I just tied it on. Yeah. No, hey, I'm gonna tell you, that deal was, there was a time when that orange bladed spinnerbait with that orange Colorado and gold willow, it wasn't really like a popular thing. Like, nobody really threw it. And this was before I was guiding, but Zach knew me then. And Zach, you can tell, dude, I used to whack them on that thing at Fork before the word got out on them for sure. Like, it was like a little golden nugget that nobody else was doing. I kind of had that deal to myself for a little while. It was awesome.
So did turn me on to it for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, man, it's let's see, I had something in here. If you don't bed fish, what's the next best way to catch fish on Fork the next couple of days? Yeah, you don't have to bed fish, man. Like Dave was saying, he's throwing a finesse Carolina rig. Dave, go ahead, go back through your spill.
And, well, yeah, we're using that little miniature Carolina rig, but we're also using a wacky Cinco. My client caught a 6.5 the other day. And so, the beds are going to be, there's places that I'm fishing that have coontail grass. And so we were throwing it in like 5, 6, 7 foot of water in that coontail grass, because those females are setting out off that bank, and you can see those males up there. And when the time gets right, that female is going to go up and pair up. And so we're actually trying to target those bigger fish that are slightly off the bank, maybe a little bit further, but there has to be something for them to set in and hide in. And that's what I've been focused on.
So I'll tell you, even when I'm bed fishing with customers, the best days are when I have a couple customers that will do this. And most people won't do this. They get too interested in the bed fish, and they want to be up there watching the whole time. Even when their buddy's flipping at one, they want to be kind of seeing what's going on and kind of checking out, because it's cool. It's fun to watch it go down. But the best, most productive days, I try to have the other guy get on the back deck and throw a Cinco away from the bank. So we're up there looking at one on the bed, take that wacky Cinco and throw it away from the bank out in the kind of the middle area, like you're talking about, Dave, out off the bank away. Because you're right. There's always females lingering out there. And some of the biggest fish, I can't tell you how many times the biggest fish of the day, even when we're looking at big ones on beds, trying to find big ones on beds, the biggest one of the day comes off the back of the boat on a wacky Cinco. But I have to have the right people where when this guy's up here fishing a bed with me, the other guy will go to the back deck and keep throwing that Cinco and keep it wet. Right. And if you do that, you'll get some big bites doing that. So a lot of times, though, you get customers, they want to watch the bed fishing activity. So not everybody does that. But
Cody does that a lot.
Getting out off in front of the spawning areas a little bit and throwing a wacky Cinco, it's not always the way to catch a bunch of fish, but it does catch some big ones.
Oh, hold on a minute. I got to take this.
All right.
I'll be back in a second.
Okay.
David Ozier.
So, Billy, just to expand on what you were saying, now I've been very fortunate enough to catch several double digits over the years, and the way I've done that is in March, when I pull into a pocket and there's boat, I stay back, and my pro tip of the day is throw at their motors. You throw at their motors and fish out. Them big females are laying out there. That's where you'll catch them, and you can make some people mad by doing that. Literally, most of the double-digit fish you caught, the majority of them have been on a wacky worm of some kind in that situation, have they not? That's right, exactly. It's always been a wacky worm. You know that, Han. Well, I know there's been one that wasn't, because you were. No, one was a Texas. Yeah, one was that Texas rig brush hog. Bro, we're fishing, and I'm flipping at a 6-pounder on a bed, and we're just like, that kind of looks like a bed up there. Throw at that spot. We can't see anything up there. We have no idea if there's any fish on it at all. And Zach catches a damn 10-pounder off a bed up there. 10-6. Yeah. Didn't even know it was there. No clue it was even there.
You know, what else is good on them beds that you can't see too is the B-Row Cinco has been doing good too.
Oh, yeah? You've been catching them on that?
Yeah. Just slow rolling on the banks, yeah.
You want to explain to anybody watching that may not know what that is?
So it's just a Texas rig Cinco with like a 16th to 8th ounce weight on the front with a hitchhiker willet blade screwed in the tail end of that Cinco, and you're just dragging it.
When you say Texas rig, are you putting a weight in front of it?
I am. I'm putting like a 16th to an 8th ounce.
So real light weight in front of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I actually rig them on those VMC drop dead hooks with no weight in front of it. But I mean, 6-1, half a dozen, another. You're getting the same action out of it. So. Yeah. No, that's I was thinking that's another one I was thinking about them. Like, yeah, it's about time for that. You know, I'm kind of waiting for this first wave. To me, that deal seems to really get good, and you can just kind of go around catching them on it when you get some post spawners. So it's like, man, when this first wave starts, bailing out, it's going to be time for that B-Row Cinco.
Oh yeah. Yep.
So any other way you've been catching them, Cody?
Man, just chatterbaits and the Cinco and wacky worm pretty much, and we've caught a few on some buzz baits in some of the warmer water. But other than that, just trying to escape this dang wind. I am so sick of this wind.
I'm telling you, it's awful early to be fed up with it, but I'm fed up with it too, buddy.
Yeah, it's bad.
It's irritating, man. It just takes so many options away when you're guiding and you're feeling the pressure of putting people on fish daily. And there's a lot of things you just can't go try. You can't do it's very frustrating, especially when the lake gets crowded too. So like when the lake gets crowded and then the wind's blowing, it makes it that much more crowded because everybody's trying to get in the same type of areas because of the wind. And so the lake is just, you get to where you can't hardly fish. because of the boats out there, and then you can't do other things effectively, especially when you're guiding, depending on who's in your boat, how good they are at fishing, how willing they are to run through rough water. Like a lot of different factors involved there where the wind is a very frustrating thing. What's funny is none of us want it to blow at all right now when they're spawning. But here in a couple months, we'll all be like cursing the calm days,
That's what I tell everybody, to embrace the suck is what I say. Yeah. So, like yesterday, we went to Holbrook yesterday. I had 2 trips yesterday, a full day and a half day. And I have never seen Holbrook that bad. We got wet on Holbrook. Because the waves were so big. It was pretty bad.
So Friday, it blew real bad Friday, last Friday. I went to Holbrook on Friday because of the wind. And I fished a shallow point, like the Lake Fork shallow point deal,
Mm-hmm.
And I was power pole down and was taking waves over the back on Holbrook.
Yeah.
Like that's bad, bro. That's real bad. When that little lake's got big enough wave where they roll over the back deck when you pulled.
Yep. Yeah. No, it's been crazy. Yeah. You gotta, when you're trying to throw that chatterbait in that grass line, and you gotta, aim, 40 yards to the left to hit where you want to hit on the right, so.
Yeah.
but yeah.
You weren't throwing you were throwing a half ounce today, right?
Well, I didn't fish today. I did not get out. Oh, yesterday, I was throwing a half ounce. Yeah.
I figured it was a half ounce because the wind. It almost makes common sense,
Yeah.
I ordered. I actually have some 3/4 that I use in this situation.
David, the viewers heard your phone ring a minute ago. They think you still got a landline. Folks, he doesn't have a landline. He's just so old and old-fashioned that he set his ringtone on the cell phone to sound like a landline.
Yeah, it does. It's an old school stuff. And the number one reason is so I can hear it. Y'all got them girls whistling and all that shit. Man, no, I don't need all that.
Good old David Oldzio. Good old David Oldzio.
Yeah.
He's our grandfatherly source around here.
Just what's the word I'm looking for here? A font of useless knowledge.
Dude, I'm gonna tell you right now. If you ever hand me some butterscotch candy, I'm never inviting you back.
Or cinnamon disc. Yeah.
I'm gonna force you to retire if you start giving out butterscotch candy, Ozio.
No, I'm not gonna do that. No.
Oh man,
that was my client that called for tomorrow.
I figured.
And they're flying from New Hampshire. They're stuck in Charlotte. They won't get into Dallas until 3 a.m.
Oh boy, they're gonna be tired.
I was like, and it's him and his dad. Oh boy, they're gonna be not in good shape for tomorrow in the wind, no less.
No doubt. Hey, we got a good bit of viewers. We're around our 100 mark that we normally get to. If you viewers got any questions, now's a great time to ask. You got 3 guys here that can answer. They've been on the water full time here lately, so let us know.
And I don't want to stay on, too much longer. I mean, I'm going to have to take a shower and sleep. Man,
it's funny because we all started, like when we started these, like kind of before fishing got real like hot and heavy. Yeah. We're all like, yeah, we'll stay on here all night. Now everybody's like, man, I got to go.
Man. And I had 3 days in that ballistic wind standing in front of that boat, man. We were right in the teeth of that wind too. And it's it'll knock you down. It will. I mean, I
don't know if people realize
that's a hard deal.
I don't know if people realize. I think, I know, all of us at one time were weekend anglers. And you go out there and you do it on the weekend and you do it for a couple days, 2.5 days. And it wears you out a little bit. You can feel it a little bit. But when you're out there 6 out of 7 days, week after week, 5 out of 7 days, week after week, and it's been blowing consistently as it has.
Yeah,
that wind takes it puts a much greater physical toll on your body when you have wind like we've had, and to have it day after day after day after day like we've had for the last 10 days, man, it's like. Well, dude, you really start getting sore, like it hurts.
Add to the fact you're up there working that troll motor. All my clients for the past 3 days, they said, I just can't believe you never sit down. You stand up there with your foot on that troll motor in that wind. And I mean, they're back there sitting in chairs in that wind, as far as firing them things and baits, and I mean, it's you're used to it. We're all used to it. We've been doing it for so long that our bodies are used to it.
We're used to it, but like last night though, Monday I had double trips. Yesterday I had double trips, and plus baseball practice both days afterwards. I ain't gonna lie. Last night I got home and I took me a half of muscle relaxer, just a half, and I went to bed. I won't tell you, I did not wake up till 9:30 this morning. My back was killing me all night. So
I know it, dude.
yeah.
It does, man. Yeah, it just beats on you, man. It makes you sore. Your legs start hurting. Like I got some old knee issues from the old football days and stuff. Like I've had a bunch of surgery on my knee.
That was back when you were dodging grenades.
Yeah, that too. But yeah, so my knees are pretty beat up between football and the Marine Corps, and like my knee starts hurting from like you're talking about standing on that wind and that trolling motor all day.
Yeah. Yep.
It does beat on you, probably playing the world's smallest violin for us out there if you don't get to fish every day like we do. But
yeah,
it is a wear and tear.
People don't understand because the guy today, they couldn't understand the fact that you can get conditioned to this like we have. We've gotten conditioned to it.
Oh gosh. Where's the mute button at? We're gonna need it now. What's up, Greg?
What's happening?
For those that don't know, that's Mr. Gregory Haynes. He does not guide, but he could if he wanted to. He's good enough for sure. So I hadn't talked to you in a long time. How you been, buddy?
Man, I'm doing all right. Got the business. I think I got my business sold.
Good.
So I'm gonna be out here a little more often.
Sounds good.
May run some trips.
We got to take some points away from you just for the company you're holding.
For sure.
Oh, no, it's good company over here. Sometimes.
You got Zach in there too. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, it's got a few rough edges.
He has some rough edges. Exactly.
We don't like it to go too smooth around here. If the ride ain't bumpy, we don't want it. You know what I mean? Yeah. No, Greg, I've talked to you in the past about, we've actually kind of had a couple little short conversations about whether you wanted to guide or not, because I felt for a long time like you're more than qualified. So after you sell this business, are you maybe thinking about starting to guide some?
Yeah, I might do it a little bit. I got to do something. Can't sit around and just fish for myself all the time.
Yeah.
No, I mean, look, dude's always on fish when nobody else is around. Hey, I'll run some. He did. Catch big fish on Toledo. I'll say that. Big fish on Toledo. Had almost 10 a week and a half ago.
Oh yeah, you finally caught your double digit, didn't you?
No, it was just under.
Oh shoot. Okay.
Just under.
Damn.
So he ain't part of the club just yet. Close. Yeah. Lost on 11. Tried to pick him out of the water by hand, and he jumped and came off.
Well, don't do that next time. You need to take Cody. Take Cody. He's a great net man. He can't catch him, but he can net him.
Too many trips. Throwing a wacky out there at Toledo. Tried to boat flip about an 8-pounder, and hook ripped out. Zach was watching that one. I did. That was a big fish. Had a belly like Billy. Had a Billy belly on it.
Oh, Billy belly? Zach, you ain't got no room to talk.
I know it. That's why I'm talking. I sure as shit don't.
You and Greg are both like, we're all the same build.
Exactly. Yeah.
Chuck's got a good question. I'm going to tell you something, Chuck. I saw over at Oak Ridge one day.
Are we back to business?
They have a hook called a Hall, Hall, and I bought a pack of the 2-aught Hall. And the thing I liked about that hook was that the wire guard on it would fit exactly where it needed to fit. And I thought, well, I'm going to try this. And I'm going to tell you what, it turns out to be a really, really good wacky worm. And we're using it on the wacky Cincos right now, and it's been bulletproof. The only negative to it after we catch a lot of fish, the wire guard occasionally breaks on some of those hooks. And so that's the only downside to it. But the hook ratios on it were fantastic.
Well, and I know that me, Zach, and Cody all used, and I probably Greg too, we all use the same wacky hook on ours. And it's one of our other viewers commented in the deal. It's a Gamakatsu finesse wide gap weedless, and it's size 1, not 1-aught. And that size 1 hook that we all use. Zach's caught a 12-pounder, 11-pounder. Like he's got a lot of big fish.
Hell, I've had fish with it.
You got to have the damn Hubble telescope to see the damn thing.
I've had some double-digit fish get in my boat on it. Like it's a smaller hook, but it's got a pretty heavy gauge to it as far as the thickness of it, so it holds up the big fish well. But same thing with what David's saying is it's about the weed guard. And the weed guard on that size 1 Gamakatsu finesse wide gap weedless it sits on the barb of that hook just right. That one is like a plastic weed guard that kind of hooks on there. And it sits on there where if you get the wrong hook, the wrong size with a bad weed guard, what'll happen is you'll rig it up on there and your weed guard will be hooked on your barb, and then you'll throw it out there, and just from casting it or bumping a piece of grass or whatever, the weed guard will pop off, and then you got an open hook that you're dragging in grass or whatever with every time. So finding the right size with the right weed guard is important for sure. And I know both the one David mentioned and that one that was commented, the one we're talking about, they both do a good job. So.
Yeah, because the thing is, if that weed guard's too long and it slides up over the barb of the hook, when the fish bites it, it won't trigger and come out from underneath the barb, depending on how big the barb is on that thing. And that's
yours is a wire weed guard, Dave?
It's a wire weed guard.
Yeah.
Hey man, I just got done installing his live scope, but we all about to roll though, so I'm probably gonna lose signal on you. So
appreciate y'all stopping in. Greg, good to see you. Z,
good to see you.
Later, boys.
All right, y'all take care. See you, Ozio.
See you, man.
Yeah, so the wire. So I found it seems like the ones that have wire, they don't hold up to the wear and tear. Yeah, like they're kind of like plastics. I guess they're plastic, but they're not wire. The weed guards on the one I use. And I think those, you can tear them up eventually, but they'll get torn or bent out of shape a little bit. You can just bend them back because they're plastic and they still work. So.
The thing too about this hook is we caught a lot of fish on those things before it finally one side of the wire guard broke. And so I'd have to, go ahead and dig out another hook as far as that goes. And I bought some 3/0 also, and we haven't had to use them yet because those 2/0 I had enough of them. So they've lasted quite a long time, to be honest with you. Yeah. But I'm going to lean on those for a while. It's a pretty small hook, and I love the way that wire guard sets on there in the right place, and it doesn't trigger very easy if you drag it over junk. So I'm pretty well happy with that. I don't know where Barry got those at, but I haven't seen them anywhere else.
Yeah, either one of those hooks will work good for you for sure. Yep. That weed guard is important. All right, couple questions. When do you start fishing chaining? We'll just take these one at a time. When do you start fishing chaining? Well, it depends on how you want to fish it. I was live scoping in the mouth of chaining a month ago. But if you're looking for bed fish in Cheney, it's a big enough creek to where I haven't been back there, but I bet the back of it's got them on beds right now. But the coves and corners out towards the mouth of Cheney, it'll be a little bit later before they get bed fish on them. So some of these creeks, these bigger creeks, you're going to find that the very backs of them, they'll be like a little miniature lake of their own, where the back corners will spawn first, and that kind of, as it warms throughout the year, they'll kind of start spawning down further out to the main lake in those creeks in the little corners and pockets. So you got to consider that. So right now you can definitely fish Cheney, but I would go to the back if I'm looking for spawning bass and stay at the mouth if I'm looking for pre-spawn. So
speaking of Sandlin, I'm guiding on Sandlin on Friday.
Tell me about Sandlin, Dave.
Sandlin, I got a couple of areas that I'm going to take these guys over there to, and we usually do real good in both of these areas. I don't want to give up the spots just yet where they are, but I've won some tournaments out of there, done well on tournaments in those areas, and we'll usually throw a chatterbait in there or a Cinco in those areas. Now, here's the thing that's even more interesting based off what the water is. That lake is famous for wanting an orange bait. You know, those Lake Fork hyper sticks? They have some that have orange. They have an orange bottom and a red, like a watermelon red top. Man, that bait is really good over there.
Huh.
Texas rig, yep.
No, I've always heard good things about Sandlin. You know, my good buddy Heath Taylor, game warden out there in that area, owns Smash Take Baits. His biggest bass he's ever caught came on Sandlin. Now, Heath is one of the best fishermen on those lakes out there. He used to win a bunch of tournaments out there on Cypress and Sandlin and, all that out there. He's really good. But his biggest bass he's ever caught everywhere he's fished has been on Sandlin. Yeah. And I can't remember, it's like a 12 or a 13, something really big. But
plus two at Sandlin, I mean, Monticello opened the gates up years and years ago, and a lot of those big fish on the south end of Monticello migrated into Sandlin. So that actually helped it.
I don't know how many did and how many didn't, but what I do know is this, David. They're weekly working man tournaments that they had on Sandlin.
They all take 30 pounds.
Well, before the gates opened, they were like 17, 18, maybe 20 every once in a while. Then a couple months after the gates opened, all of a sudden it was like, and this is in summer, like 27, 26. So the weights went up after the gates opened on Monticello. So, some of them definitely came through the gates over there on Monticello when they opened those up. Yeah. So it's got some good ones in it. Bob Sandlin's a pretty good lake from everything I've ever heard. I've never actually been on it because every time I've gone that way, I've gone to Monticello.
Yeah, I used to fish tournaments on it a lot back in the day, especially when the water's in the 50s. And so yeah, we'll throw a chatterbait in a couple of locations on Friday. And then based off what the water temp is, we'll actually look for some bedfish there, because in some of those pockets there, we've had I've caught some big bedfish. I mean, I'm talking 8s and 9s in there in those pockets if the water's right. So we're gonna go.
I remember seeing a very, very old episode of Honey Hole Outdoors out there where Bill Wilcox was catching some big bedfish on Bob Sandlin.
Yep,
quite a long time ago, but yeah, I remember that. So it does that too. The last part of the question. Are we using fast or extra fast? I'm assuming we're talking about rods, like the rod tip. Are you using fast or extra fast for flipping beds? Well, here's the thing. Here's the problem with answering that question. Different rod companies label that differently. So here's what I go with. I'll be honest with you, there's not a lot of rods made, okay, that are perfect for bed fishing. There's very few. They're either, like – you want like your 7.2, 7.3, maybe even like 7.1, 7 foot, somewhere in that length. The one I use is 7.2, but 7.3 is fine. 7 foot's fine if you like it shorter, whatever. If you get a medium heavy in one of those lengths, it's usually a little too light for a bigger fish. You can't control a bigger fish with them, especially short distance. That big fish is hot. It gets hard to take control of that fish. If you get a heavy action, it's too stiff. And you lose a lot of your medium-sized fish because your rod doesn't have enough shock absorption. And when you're that short, it's easy for them to get slack on you if you don't have enough bend in your rod. So it's kind of like the perfect sight fishing rod is like in between 7'2" and in between heavy and medium heavy. That's really hard to find. Dobbins has like a 7'3", 7'3" inch, and I believe it's a 04 rating that is the right one that I like from them. The 04, like the 03 is a little too low, which is kind of their medium heavy. It's pretty good because it's got a good parabolic bend and taper to it at the end, so it's got a little more bend to it than your heavy actions would. But it's got enough backbone on it too, so it's kind of a good one. So, man, it's kind of personal preference. Do you want more bend and want to play the fish more? You want more control, have a stiffer rod, but you're gonna probably lose some of the medium to smaller size fish you hook up on at close distance. It's a tough deal to get the perfect bed fishing rod. I designed one. It's not for sale anymore, so I'm not going to advertise it. I got one that I think is perfect for it now, but we're not selling them anymore. So I don't want to be plugging that because you can't get it. But
I do it a little bit different. What I'll use on rod choice is based off the size of the fish. All right.
Oh, really? Okay.
And I'll have a 7.2 rigged up a 20-pound line, and then a white, creature bait type thing and I'll paint the pinchers or on it, whatever, red. And then I'll have like Wacky Cinco on 15-pound line. And most of the time, if this fish is under 5 pounds, they will almost always eat that Cinco. I mean, especially if they're locked. And if they don't, then we'll rotate through, go to another, say a 15-pound rod that's got a swim bait, like a little dipper on it, and throw in there. We'll see which bait gives the best reaction.
Yeah, you're doing it completely different than I'm doing it.
If the fish is if I can see that fish is not 5 pounds, then we'll use lighter equipment actually for it. And we actually land or get more bites on those things with the lighter line rather than the heavier line in that situation. Because when you can see them that well, that water's fairly clear. And so
you're making this way too complicated for me, dude.
Well,
you're throwing all these different baits at them and stuff. Like I just can't operate that way. That's just not hey, that's what makes this sport great. We all do it differently, but I just can't go about it that way. Like, I'm going to throw the same thing at them. And for me, it's like I said this earlier, but it's all about their behavior cues.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
Making them react. And that's just, I throw the Texas rig with a 3/8. And sometimes if I'm having to stay real far away, I'll upsize to a 1/2 ounce weight so it's easier to pitch further. But usually a 3/8 ounce weight, I'm throwing a little short compact creature bait of some kind on like a 4-aught hook, 4-aught flipping hook, and or offset straight shank. It needs to be straight shank for sure. No EWGs on this. But the rod, like I said, it's kind of the tweener for me. It's the Dobbins 734. That's the number I was thinking of. Their 734 rod and all their series is a good sight fishing rod. It's almost a little too heavy action for some of the fish that you need to catch at times. Some of your 3-pounders, your keepers, or if you're sight fishing on fork, your unders. If you're in a tournament, it can be a problem. If you're doing what I do, like, here's the deal, bro. If we hook a 2-pounder and lose it, like, we're not really that upset about it. Doing what I do, it's not a big deal.
Right.
So
in my world is different though.
We're mostly focusing on 4 pounds and up on beds, and like that's the ones we really want to boat. And that 734 is really pretty good for all those, even at a short distance.
Yeah.
It's not perfect, but it's pretty good.
And the reason why I'm saying this too is that here you got Megabass coming up here in 2 weeks, and I guarantee you a customer is going to win an hour for $15,000, you know, with a 280 or a 270 class fish. You know, I mean, true story. I had a client last year that I put on a fish. Cody even caught that fish the day after the tournament, and he called me and said, "Hey man, there's a big under back there." I said, "Yeah, I knew about it. I put my guy on it." He didn't even go to it. So I go there the next day. That fish is still there. And now when we got there, the female was there. And my guy flipped up there. A white jig is what I had on that rod. And he flipped up there and he caught the male, was 282 under. Told him it was a $15,000 fish. And then while I'm holding that fish, I'm going to go put it in a live well. He catches the female, 8.5.
That's awesome.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm sorry, buddy. I'm having to do what you were doing earlier, but I'm doing it on text with a customer. So you know how that goes. This time of year, that phone don't rest much. This time of year, you know it is.
Well, I'm going to need to exit out of here, man.
Okay.
So
yeah, it's that time. It's that time.
Any more questions for me, for your fan base, before I run?
No, no more questions in here. Lots of love for us in here. Talking about always get the best answers in here. Yeah, just a lot of guys saying that. I seen another guy was complimenting earlier about all our discussion on moon cycles and all that. Helped him out a lot in Georgia. They really whacked them. Had 14 bass for like 80 pounds in Georgia. I saw that comment earlier. I didn't bring it up because it wasn't a question, but I did see it and I appreciate it. But yeah, no, all good stuff. Dave, thank you for always helping out and giving the insight, man. We appreciate it.
Yep. Just try to make those people better fishermen. You know, that's the way we roll. That's
yes,
Billy Lawson in a nutshell.
Well, it's not Billy Lawson. It's your Lake Fork guide, and that's a little bit of all of us, brother. That's a little bit of all of us. Appreciate it. Have a good one.
Take care. We'll see you guys.
There, Dave. All right, man. Good stuff here. Yeah, the phone has been going off over here, so I'm going to have to get on that here in a minute when I get off here. Appreciate Cody stopping in for a little while. Mike was unable to make it tonight, but I'm sure he'll be back next week or the week after. Mike's doing well. He's catching a lot of fish. Mike's been really doing really good on bed fishing. He's improved a lot over the years at that. He's been doing a great job. So highly encourage you to seek all these guys out, man. If you need a guide trip, reach out to them. They're great. They're good people, as you can kind of tell from the time we spend on here. Nobody's gaining anything out of this. Really, at the end of the day, we're not gaining any. No, I'm not paying these guys to come on here. We're not making any money off of it. So these are all good dudes that really want to help people catch bigger fish, and that's why they're guides. That's why they're guides, because they want to help people. So and they have a passion for it. It's kind of their purpose. So most importantly, man, thank all of you guys for watching. Still got over 100 in here. The crowd never dies around here at your Lake Fork Guide, and I can't thank y'all enough for that. Yeah, I'm a little bit mush-minded. We've been talking a lot. I've been fishing a lot. I've been doing baseball. I came straight from baseball practice today too, so you know it's busy with that too. So thank you guys for watching as always, and I'm going to get out of here before I say something else dumb, and we'll see you next time right here on your Lake Fork Guide.